Hello, welcome to Wheezy Monday on a Tuesday, Lost in the Backyard. That's the full title. That probably won't be the title of this video, because you wouldn't click on it. Well, I mean, you might, but many wouldn't, because they'd be confused. Used to think clever titles were the way to go. Funny, ridiculous titles. Making fun of the idea of titles when you make a title. That was the way to go for me. But then y'all just started looking for interesting titles to click on that made sense. Man, the golden age of titles was back when titles didn't matter. How are you? I have two videos for the main channel in the what do you call it? In the pipeline. They're done. Just waiting to put them up. Got the Why Do People Like Getting Married, and then the coloring every day for a month. We did adult coloring books with Iz and Johnny Harris, also YouTubers you should check out. They are great. And I'm debating calling it we coloring every day for a month, or coloring to de-stress, here's what happened, but I think what I might go with is Why Do People Like Adult Coloring Books. That might be the way to go, but I'm not sure. I asked you on Twitter if there was anything you wanted me to talk about, and so let's see here. We got how about them Packers, eh? Did you see the game? How about them Packers, eh? Did you see the game? That was more like UP accent. There's different types of Midwest accents, you guys. From Rin. I did see the end of the game. They won. They're 7-2. I'd love to see them go to the Super Bowl. Although I don't watch that closely. I can miss a game and I'll be fine, or I can forget a game is on and I'll be fine. But as a Wisconsinite, yeah, go Packers. I would like you to use my name in a haiku, and also speak more about how you write your videos. Bob McGuire. Well, Bob McGuire, thank you for your suggestion. I shall comply. Thanks. That was my haiku for you, Bob McGuire. Speak more about how you write your videos. All right. How I write my videos. This varies pretty widely, but you could probably boil it down to two different types of videos lately. Mainly two different types. Wow, it's real shadowy right here. The two are the sort of essays that are just like, they could be like how-tos or like lists around a topic, and then the experience videos. And the experience videos where we quit something for a month or whatever. The experience videos, much easier to write, much more written in the edit and the experience and the shooting and the doing the thing. And then when I'm done doing the thing, I'll usually take the footage, spend days cutting it down. It's usually like an hour to 2 hours of footage. Maybe 40 minutes to 2 hours of footage, something like that. And I'll spend days and days cutting it down, like little snippets here, little snippets there, and shorten it, to cut out obvious things that I don't think are going to be there. And as I go through, I'll go through again later. Once I get it all in my head, the story just starts to naturally emerge as I keep cutting and keep reorganizing footage. This goes over here, this goes over here. Because we'll talk about things early on in the experience, like I hope this will happen, or this at the very beginning, it's like, well, this is a surprise. And then later on, there might be a payoff, like, well, I thought this was going to happen and it did, or I thought this was going to happen and it didn't. But then there'll be other things that we talk about at the beginning that just never are talked about again. There's no payoff. So those will just get cut usually. And then if I feel like it needs an intro, like the vegan video, I guess, is a pretty good example of, or intermittent fasting, that's a pretty good example of, so like I'll cut it down and I'll have this story put together, but then like intermittent fasting's one of the things that probably less people knew what it was. It's, I mean, you can kind of guess a little bit based on the name, but really, like, you have to go into a little bit of detail about what it is and what it is that I'm trying to do. Like, so you got to set up the goals. You got to set up, like, why am I doing this? Like, that's the big one. That's the big one. The really big one is, why am I doing this? But the two necessary ones are probably, what is it and why am I doing it? Just got to answer those questions. And sometimes the footage that we shot already for the experience just answers the questions right away. So I barely need to say anything. What's a recent one where, the one about decluttering, where China and I kind of just sat down and talked about decluttering and then showed us decluttering. It's the second like decluttering video we did, the more recent one. I didn't do any hosting. I didn't write anything and then say it to the camera as a host, because all the footage we got explained it all. There was no reason. There was no information more information needed. I always try to keep it as minimal as possible. Don't overdo it. Don't over explain. Just make sure it's there, and don't add. Like, just, it's mostly about taking away. And then so like the intermittent fasting, it's like, what is it? And then I explain, this is the type of intermittent fasting I'm going to do. I start eating at 11 a.m. and I stop eating at 7. And then why? And then why is broken down into a few things. Like, what is it that this does? Why do this? And it's kind of a what and a why. Like, what is it, and then what does it do? Why would people do this? And you explain, like, well, these are the purported benefits of intermittent fasting that people have, and but probably the most crucial one, if you can effectively get to it, I think the most compelling one is the why. Why am I doing this? Explain why do I care? Why would I want to lose weight? Why would I want to eat healthier? And just explain that. Just get it out there. And then as I'm doing that, I just naturally write jokes. That's just the way that I write. That's the way I do things. I like to make things funny. That's for me an easier way to make things more interesting and less boring, is if I add in jokes. And sometimes I overdo that. I often overdo that, actually. And so I'll write that all out. And then as I'm shooting, I usually cut out a lot of those jokes. I start to say things as I say things from the script. I realize several things, like some of the stuff is too wordy. I tend to over-explain when I'm writing, because as I say it, it seems more obvious. Like, I don't need to explain things as much. When I'm saying them out loud, it's like, why would I need to say all of this? Just cut to what I mean. But add in as many jokes as I think are funny. But as I'm talking and I'm like going through a long wordy joke, I often am like, no, that's too much. We're way off topic. Let's get back to it. So even in the shooting, I'm still writing, but at the writing stage, yeah, make sure I'm answering the why, throw in the jokes as I write it to keep it funny, and then as I go through the usually it's like the intro before the experience, and then I go through the experience begins, like day 1, intermittent fasting, day 2, day 3, and I just use the footage I have and explain as much as possible with the footage I already have and not with me talking. And then at times it might get confusing. There might be confusing moments in the footage that require explanation. Either I cut them or I explain them. If it's interesting enough, I'll explain it. Often I keep things in just because they lead to a funny joke in the footage. Like there's footage that has something funny happening, but it requires a little bit of explanation for it to actually be funny, for most people to get it. I think there's a tendency actually for a lot of people when you're making something, you find something very funny, but you forget that there's more knowledge is needed for the audience to find it funny. Like some things are just going to be confusing to the audience that you find hilarious because it needs more context. It needs more premise. The setup, the premise. Chris Rock said in some interview or something, I remember him saying like, a lot of people pay a lot of attention to the punchline, but really the most important thing in a joke is the premise. You have to make sure that the premise is solid. Really set up the premise. I mean, it doesn't have to be long, but it has to be there. You have to make sure that everyone's on the same page. If most people are going to get a joke, you got to make sure all the information's out there. And sometimes you forget, there's something called the curse of knowledge, where you're an insider about some information and you forget that not everyone has all that information. The vegan video is another good example, not just of a joke, but of setting up a whole video, of like, it's easy to forget that not everyone even knows what being a vegan is. I think at this point most people do, but still I bet a lot don't. People might have the wrong idea of what it is. They might think it's just being a vegetarian, but it's different. So I had to make sure to put the definition in at the beginning, even though to me it's obvious. But it's obvious to me because I've been thinking about it while making this video for months, and also have friends who are vegan, so I know more about it. But it's easy to forget that not everyone knows that. In fact, I think that's a big issue with almost everything in society, and all the things we're going through right now is the curse of knowledge. We forget about other people's point of view and what other people know and what they don't know, and you're unaware of what you don't know. Anyway, so you got to make sure everyone's on the same page when you're writing. And when I'm going through the footage, when I'm on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 of the experience, I try to minimize the amount of hosting, intercutting interjecting that I do. But where it's absolutely necessary, I'll do it. Or if it's just kind of long at times, if I need to speed it up, just add in the hosting quick explanation to get through something. I'm always concerned about pacing. Like, I'm deeply, deeply, probably too concerned about pacing. As you can tell from the fast pace of my main channel videos. This is what's beautiful about these Wheezy Monday videos, is that I'm not concerned about pacing at all. It's actually really nice and comforting, and it might be comforting for people watching too, to have pauses, to sit and think about what I'm going to say next. But which I'm doing right now, and now I'm getting too in my own head about it. Anyway, writing. So that's how you do the experience stuff, and then you have a sum up. Like, make sure that there's a good ending to it. A setup, payoff. Setup, payoff. Everything you do, everything you make, is about setups and payoffs. In writing and in video, and storytelling, whatever. So if you spend all this time setting up why at the beginning, then you have to have payoff at the end. You don't have to, but revisit the stuff you set up at the beginning. Like, why am I doing this? And then at the end, show, like, did it work? Did my why pay off? And often the footage that I already have from the experience will answer a lot of that, but there are many times it doesn't. So then I have to write up a summary. There's no formula. It's no like this many pages for the intro, this many pages for the conclusion. You can make things like that. That's just not how I do it. For me, it's very, it's different. I reinvent the wheel every time. But some require a much longer explanation. Sometimes, like, sometimes I'll go back and reshoot with China a conclusion because we didn't really get one while we were doing the experience. That you'll see that sometimes, like when we're both sitting in my office where I normally do my hosting, and it's both of us, and we're just talking at the end. That's because I didn't get the answer to why. I didn't get the answer to if it worked or not in the footage we had. So we just did that, actually. The coloring every day for a month. We kind of stopped shooting after like day 21. I actually lost footage for day, I think it was like day 25 or 26. I shot something, and when I went to edit, I was gone. I don't know where it went. I guess I forgot to take it off the card and then erase the card. But I also we didn't have a conclusion while I was finishing up the video. And I'm like, well, we definitely need a payoff here. And so I went back and we had a conversation. We had a long conversation about how it went. And then I went back and cut that up and put that at the end. The sugar video, or the internet video, I think maybe both, sugar and internet video, have an ending that is sort of like just me interviewing, the sun's going down now, me interviewing China, and me interviewing myself. I think I faked someone interviewing me. I was looking off screen. Looking back, I don't like that I did that. But there's like, that was all about, while I was editing the sugar stuff, I realized, we have these questions set up at the beginning with China and I that didn't get answered. We need to go full circle here for the video to truly be good. We don't have to. I could have easily just ended it. And I bet a lot, nobody would have really noticed. I don't think anyone would have called it out or anything, but it felt unsatisfying. Like, it felt like there needed to be a little bit more. And what there needed to be was the answer to why. Why are we doing this? Did it work? So there's like the end testimonials there. I feel like early on when I was making stuff, and early on when anyone's making stuff, I think people might think they might just do something like that, like an end testimonial or a hosting segment or an intro, just because that's what you're supposed to do. Like, they feel like we need to have like a talkie thing here, and we need to do this here. I don't think in that way anymore at all. After doing these so many times, it's only about what I feel like the thing needs. So if I'm watching it and I'm entertained, you can get it in your head like, okay, I'm gonna, this part will have the experience footage, and then there'll be a hosting part, and then there'll be this. You get the pacing in your head before you even see the content. I try to avoid that as much as possible. Like, I look at the footage and I'm like, okay, this feels good. And I err on the side of less, like, do I need to say anything here? And if I start to feel like I'm forcing myself to think of something to say, it's like, nope, don't say anything. Just leave it. It's good. It's good the way it is. And then at the end, like, well, we should have this like conclusionary part where we're talking about what we did, but then I'll watch the footage and be like, well, actually, why? All the information's there. We don't need it. That happens pretty often. But then often, then the other thing happens as well, like where, we actually do need to talk about this. So yeah, that's the long-winded version of how I write my experience videos. Err on the side of let the footage that you get do the work. And don't force my hosting and my writing on it as much as possible. And then when I do write, I try not to force jokes either. They just happen because that's just naturally how I write. I don't think it's necessary for everyone to always have jokes. That's just the way I do it. Then the other main style of video would be the like essay, or sort of like list/essay videos. There's other styles. There's like, sketch or more like straight up comedy stuff, but I'm not doing that much right now. The how-to, or the 10-minute rule video, or the what's another recent one? I don't even remember. Wow, I don't remember my videos. I remember the 10-minute rule one because I particularly really like that one, even though that one's also kind of an experience video. That one's kind of a little bit of both. But there's the it's like how to find meaning in your life one. I don't remember what the title was. But basically those are, I spend a lot of time thinking about those. I spend a lot of time, probably like 3 days maybe I'll write a little bit, like I'll start with a little word vomit, because I'll get an idea in my head of a type of video I want to make, type of thing I want to say, but then I have to be like, okay, but what do I actually want to say? How do I want to say this? When everything feels pointless, that's one, or how to actually read more books. Other ones. But basically, when it's more, those require more writing. Those require me straight up writing a script and then saying it and then trying to make it funny and adding B-roll. More invention off the top of my head rather than relying on experience. Much harder to write, I think, just because it requires more writing. But if I spend like 3 days, like I'll start maybe writing a little word vomit, just getting a bunch of stuff down on page, write an intro. That helps me sort out like what the purpose of the video is. I need to nail down the purpose first. If you saw how I revived my channel or whatever it was called, resurrected my channel. I don't remember what I called it. That video, I give my like 4 rules. Was it 4 rules or 3 rules? But the first one was have a purpose. And the second one is communicate that purpose with everything you do. That is where I try to start all the time. Because if I feel writer's block, if I feel like I'm struggling to figure out what to write next, or I'm dreading the video. Like I have an idea for a video and I say I'm going to do it and I start plans to do it and I'm like, find it hard to even want to do it. Almost always. I would probably say always. The problem is I haven't nailed down the reason why I'm doing it. I need to find sometimes you just need to find that reason. If you don't have it, doesn't mean you can't get it. You just have to find that reason why you're making something. And generally for like list videos, it generally boils down to like wanting to, well, it has to be it's probably a couple things. It's external and internal. Like externally, I want to help people. I want to give the information that I've learned over the years of doing this, or living life, and help in any way I can. But then internally, like sometimes it's like I want to discover things for myself. For why do people like exercise? It was one of the first ones I did like this, and like I genuinely wanted to find out what is it about exercise. Why do people like doing it? Not just like why do you do it? Why do people like doing it? I narrowed in specifically on that because I found it very weird that we desire to, some people, not everyone does like it, but you desire to exert energy and waste or use a lot of time in your day and go through pain because you enjoy it. And I just found that interesting and I wanted to know why. And maybe that would help me understand and keep myself motivated to do it myself. And once you have that purpose, that's a why you set up, just like at the beginning of the experience videos, then you spend the rest of the time trying to answer that core question. You go off on it might seem like you're going off on tangents and you're answering other questions, but they all kind of funnel back to that core question. And if you don't have that core question, you can still make a video and go off and try to answer all these random things. It's just going to be less motivating for myself to do it because I'm not going to have that core question that I'm trying to answer, and I'm not going to have, and it's all going to seem kind of disjointed, and it's going to, probably for the audience too, it's going to be hard to, there won't be a drive to continue watching because you won't have that need to answer that core question. Hi. What you doing, dumping out grease? Yep. Cool. Yep. The movie Grease?
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have a DVD player anymore, so anyway, she just dumped Grease on the movie onto our lawn. No, not the movie. But just have that core question. I spend 3 days, maybe, figuring out what that question is. And sometimes that involves writing it out, and then going back and rewriting. I rewrite the intro. I spend a lot of time on the intro. I rewrite the intro sometimes 5 times, 6 times. And then almost always, once I finally narrow in on that, whatever that is, the rest of the script kind of flows. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I hit roadblocks, but usually, like, I'll get into a flow state after that, and then I'll be able to just write 5 pages. Sometimes I've made it up to like 9 pages or 10 pages. But once I figure out that core and really get a good intro written, really set it up. Once it's all set up, like, all the rest of it is just answering that. It's just the payoff. If you have a good enough setup, the payoff is gonna be easy. It should be. But usually the way I do the payoff, what helps guide me through is lists. Just so I have the setup. Okay, now find the answers, and then just write down the answers. That's your list, and then just explain those things on that list. That's generally my process for those types of videos. But the commonality here for both of them and for everything is figure out the core reason why. Have the purpose. Have the setup. Have the question that needs answering, and then just try to answer it. It helps guide you with everything you do. If you just have that question, just every new direction you want to go, every new tidbit of information, you bring it back to the question. How does this answer the question? Does it answer the question? Or does it help answer the question? How does it complicate the question? And then you just have that back and forth to guide you through the rest of what you're creating. I bet you could, when you're struggling in the creation of something, I bet you can narrow it down to you don't know the question. You don't have the question. You don't have the purpose. And you have to find it. Or but there isn't one. Maybe you just don't have one. You don't care about that. So find something else to do. But don't give up too quickly, because I find that sometimes the question's hard to find. Sometimes it takes a while, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And then there are other times where I just kind of run out of time, and I have kind of a weak question, but I still have one, and I end up making the video, and those generally I end up not liking as much. Not always. Sometimes they surprise me. Sometimes I end up making something that I end up liking, or the audience ends up liking, that I didn't think they would. But usually, like, if you look at most of the videos on my channel in the last 2 years that have done the best, those are the ones where I had a clear core question that I wanted answered. And the ones that have done worse, I wasn't quite as sure. Or I had one, but it just wasn't as compelling of a question. And same thing with me for movies, TV, not necessarily for TV. TV shows, serial entertainment's a little different, I think. Well, I mean, the best serial entertainment, it does have a core question, I think, that guides the whole series. But if it's like a multi-character drama, those tend to be a little looser on their questions. No, you know what? I'm taking that back. Now that I think about it, all the shows that I really like do kind of have the core question that they're trying to answer. Like, Breaking Bad. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it. But anyway, yeah, I think most of the things I like do have that. Even, art, paintings, music. Music's also, yeah, in music as well. It's a little more, what's the word? Ambiguous, I guess, with music. But I think that you could still argue that good songs, good styles do have core purposes and core questions, setups and payoffs. I mean, it's all about setups and payoffs. Wheezy Mondays videos often do have core questions. This one, I started it not knowing that it was going to have one. I didn't know for sure what I was going to talk about. I did know I was going to answer questions on Twitter. When I do that, that means I didn't have a core question that I wanted answered. I didn't know, but it's Tuesday. I was supposed to do a video yesterday, so I asked Twitter. But this one did turn into a video with a core question that needed answering, and that was, how do I write videos? So there you go. How are you? Thank you for your support watching these, and I hope everyone's doing well through this very not great time we're going through right now, and I hope you're safe and healthy, and keep fighting the good fight. I do these kind of videos every single weekday on Patreon, which I'll put on the screen here, and watch out for the next video, which will be Why Do People Like Getting Married on the main channel, and then the next one after that would be probably Why Do People Like Adult Coloring Books. Thank you. Bye.